Hey everybody, it's Wednesday, January 11th, 2012, and this is a continuation of my earlier video because I totally ran out of time. Okay, so we covered the fact that, I learned about this issue not from indoctrination from Muslims, but just from my own study of history and the current situation, which was actually brought about by some of my personal experiences. Okay, and we also covered the fact that there's a lot of reasons given for this conflict, a lot of justifications of what's going on based on history, based on demonization of people because of their race or religion, demonization of people because of history, misdirection of the issue, saying, bringing up things that are totally irrelevant, like the nature of Palestine in the past or the nature of the Palestinian people. Well, there's a lot of, I can't even think of all the things right now, but there's a lot of things that are brought up that are totally irrelevant to what's going on. And what's really relevant is human rights. Okay, does a Palestinian have human rights or not? Can a Palestinian own a home? Or can they not own a home because of their race? That's the question. Okay, so do the Palestinian refugees have a right to go back to their homes, or does the right of Israel to have a majority of European Jews override that right? That is the question. The reason why the Palestinian refugees are not allowed to go home is because they would tip the scales decisively in the favor of Arab Muslims as far as demographics, which Israel, if you look at the whole of Israel, and you're realistic about what Israel encompasses, it's 48.6% Jewish and 48.5% Arab, Muslim. Okay, those are the facts. Unless you just want to deny that the West Bank and Gaza are Israel, which they are. Gaza is a giant Israeli prison, and the West Bank is a giant Israeli enclave, okay, with prisons all through it for people who are the wrong race. That's what it is. So, and we've covered the fact that this is not really a conflict any more than slavery was a conflict between black people and white people, because the black people, even if they did bad things occasionally against their masters, supposed masters, they were being victimized. And it's the same situation with Palestinians. Palestinians are not, they have no power. They are, the whole, if you want to call it a conflict, okay, it's a conflict between the Zionist project trying to destroy Palestinians and the Palestinians trying to exist and to remain on their land. That's the conflict, if that's what you want to call it. But really, it's a crime. It's a crime against humanity because it's a giant project of ethnic cleansing and the destruction of an entire society and erasure of that society, so that another society can be built upon it to mimic myths of the past, religious mythology. So that's what it's about. It's not a conflict so much as a giant crime being committed against people who are deemed to be unneeded, unnecessary, unwanted because they're Arabs. And Arab Jews, again, Arab Jews in Israel are not on the same level as European Jews. Although they are tolerated, they are second-class citizens. The Arab Israelis are third-class citizens, and the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza are not citizens at all. They're totally just non-entities as far as the state is concerned, and have no rights, can be killed at any time for no reason, and there are no repercussions, and they often are killed for no reason or for demonstrating non-violently. Okay, so those are the facts, and Jews are also being victimized by this to a certain extent, because they are being completely alienated from their own history and their own place in the Middle East. Israel is a a sort of a beachhead of Europe in the Middle East. It's not a Middle Eastern country per se. It is a construct, a European construct that is attempting to override and destroy the actual history of the land and the region. And this becomes clear if you hear Israeli Jews say that, like I did. I saw a documentary, and there was a famous Israeli Jew, and at one point he said, "I've never felt like I was home." And that's what, I've never felt like I had a home. And he lived in Israel. And that's sort of what Israel has done to Jews, is that it has totally divided them from that region and made that region and that culture and that history their enemy, where it didn't have to be. It didn't have to be a sense, in a sense, a tiny fortress from Europe in the Middle East, where you reject those people and you fight them to the death. They could have been integrated into the region. They could have done this a different way than to colonize and to conquer and to throw out and to erase and destroy the people who were living there at the time. They could have integrated with that culture and actually gone to the Middle East as Middle Easterners and not as Europeans. Okay, so, and that was a possibility within Zionism itself. I mean, Zionism was not a monolith. It was actually a vast spectrum of political ideas, and those ideas were there. They just didn't end up being the prominent ideas. The prominent ideas ended up being ethnic exclusivity and European colonization. Okay, so what's the solution? The solution is, as Ali Abunimah has very eloquently argued, the solution is justice and equality and democracy. And to get that, you must first understand that what is going on there now is not justice, it's not equality, it's not democracy. It is inequality, injustice, and it is ethnocracy or theocracy, however you want to define it. Now, Israel defines Judaism as having a certain strand of DNA. That's a racial definition. So that would mean that it's an ethnocracy. Some people define it as being a religion, so that would mean it's a theocracy. Okay, but it's not a democracy, because it's the state of the Jewish people wherever they may live. About 94% of the land is held in trust for the Jewish people. It's not available to non-Jews. 94% of the land. Okay, and this is done through all kinds of slights and deceptions, but that is the truth of the matter, is that the land is not available for non-Jews, for Gentiles, and that's not equal. You can't marry, even Jews cannot marry non-Jews and bring them into Israel. That's not allowed. Especially Muslims or Arabs or Palestinians. You cannot marry Palestinians and bring them into Israel, no matter how Jewish you are. That's not equal. Okay. Palestinian refugees who were born in Palestine can't return to Palestine, but European Jews from America or Europe or Australia who've never been there and had no family that ever came from there can go there and return to a Palestinian's home who is wasting away in a refugee camp. Now, if you want to call that equal, okay, just shut down your brain, cease to be a sentient being, and call it equal. I do not choose to be a cipher. I choose to be a sentient being and to recognize reality. That is not equal. And the solution is equality. There's no reason to believe that the Zionist argument that Arabs are just savages and could never live equally with Jews is any more valid than the Afrikaners' South African apartheid argument, which went exactly the same way and said that we must have apartheid because the blacks are savages. It's the same argument, okay, and it doesn't hold any water. So the solution is, it's not the two-state solution, it's not anything else, it is the one-state solution with justice and equality. Thanks for watching.